times when it may have been easier, may have been the right thing to quit, and I just kept pushing through and ended up developing a really beautiful 7-figure business that employs a bunch of people. And, like college was great. I knew it was like the thing that my parents wanted me to do, and I just wanted to get school out of the way so I could get to the real. So people, in particular politicians on both sides of the aisle in this country, like to say that they're for small business, and it's been my experience that that's not true. Of the agency that I started, the sales development rep agency, Avadel, it's 2 letters from each of my 3 kids' names that I just put together and mashed up, because every day, man, I get up and I think about, I'm doing this for them.
All right, everyone, welcome back to SALESBIZ. Always appreciate you taking the time, ladies and gentlemen. Today, before we kick it off, let's go ahead and hit that subscribe, folks. Like if you find any value out of this specific episode. And if you have any comments for us at all, go ahead and drop them down below. Today, my guest is a effing rock star. This man comes from a lot of entrepreneurship experience. Currently the founder of his own company, Avadel. I'm super excited to get to know him and share his insight. Mr. David Valentine. David, welcome, brother.
Thanks for having me, Mike. Super pumped to be here, brother. It's going to be fun.
I'm excited to have him, my man. Appreciate you taking the time. Let's kick it off, boss. Before we dive into the company experience, all the entrepreneurship stuff, talk us a little bit about David and how he got started in this crazy game.
Yeah, man. Well, I mean, I was always that kid growing up that like I couldn't wait to get done with high school. And really get to work, man. Like college was great. I knew it was like the thing that my parents wanted me to do, and I just wanted to get school out of the way so I could get to the real shit. So for me, man, when I was, I guess a freshman in college, I got this gig working for a little small business out of Northern Virginia called Funtastic Fitness. We'd take all sorts of like fun daycare, like fun fitness ideas to daycares and private schools and whatever for like preschoolers, right? Kindergarten, school age, whatever. And I did that for a summer, teaching all these classes. And then I went to them and I said, hey, I want to do sales. 19-year-old kid, no experience doing cold calls. And they basically did like the standard, hey, why don't you just listen to the founder and how he does his calls for a day, and then you start making calls to these territories that just we've never touched. So it was baptism by fire, and lots of just doing it poorly and really having no formal training. School of hard knocks, man. And it was a pretty prolific few months there. Generated a whole bunch of revenue they didn't have the year before, and kind of caught the bug. So, that kind of kicked off my sales career and also got me really interested in entrepreneurship.
Dude, you had me at high school dropout. Literally dropped out senior year of my career. Was not a fan of high school ever. I mean, chemistry and astronomy, whatever need that for, but it taught me a lot about personal mobility and a lot of communication skills. So totally hear you there. What inspired you to get into the business game specifically, though? We're talking about a lot of risk here. Tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah, man, I always think it's risky to not go into business for yourself. Everybody's like, that's a lot of risk. And I'm like, dude, I'm the last person to get fired at my companies. Like everybody else goes first. I think for me, honestly, man, like my wife, I got married super young. I was one of those people. And we started having kids super young too, because I guess that's just what we did. My wife really wanted to be at home full time with the kiddos. And I was working in-house. I was actually doing marketing and advertising for these pretty large companies, but I wasn't making a ton of money. And decided to really go after it as we started a family, which is just psychotic, by the way. And so for a while I was working like my day job, and then I'd get home, I'd kiss my wife, have dinner with my wife and our newborn. And then from basically hang out with them from like 5:30 to 7. 7 to 10, I'd work on the business, wake up at 5 the next morning, work on the business from 5 to 8, go to work. And then sometimes I'd work at work on the business. and then, yeah, man, then I'd work on the weekends. So did that for like a year and a half to really gin up enough business to where I could go full time. And basically gave myself 5 months and runway to get there in my personal savings, and got there just in the nick of time, man. So,
my man, I could not respect more about the hustle after our work hours, especially. You got to get those bills paid, right? But at the same time, you have a dream. What kept you going, boss? What was the thing that kept driving you instead of going into the bars and doing happy hour? Hey, I'm going to actually grind away at this until I actually achieve my dream.
There was this Russell Crowe movie. I think it's Russell Crowe, where he, Cinderella Man. It was like the guy back in the Depression, right? He was the boxer.
Yeah, I hear you.
Yeah, man. And there was this scene where, he's like this guy who's aging, and people are wondering why he keeps boxing, because he keeps getting hurt. It's just brittle. He's going to be an older man. And then he starts putting together this string of wins, right? And it's when his family can't put any food on the table, they can't pay for any heat. And people are like, why do you do this? And he's like, I'm not boxing for myself anymore. I'm boxing for milk. And man, I felt like that a lot, Mike. Like, I kept going and I busted my ass because I wasn't doing it for me. Like, this wasn't about how I was going to get a new Benz or something, man, or that I was going to get a nice little bachelor pad. All those things are great, by the way. I fucking love those things. But dude, I was really working hard so that my family could be provided for. And at the end of the day, man, actually the name of the agency that I started, the sales development rep agency, Avadel, it's 2 letters from each of my 3 kids' names that I just put together and mashed up, because every day, man, I get up and I think about, I'm doing this for them. Because that's it, man, and so, yeah, that's what kept me going.
Couldn't agree with you more, man. I kid you not. This is the first time I'm sharing it on my podcast. Don't really like talking about my ink, but I literally have family first tattooed on my arms. Couldn't agree more. That's like the most important thing ever. And I couldn't agree with you more too. The struggle is real, man. It really, really brings it out of you. Kids wise, is that what you want to teach your kids though? I mean, I would imagine some people are saying, I'm afraid to give them everything, but at the same time, that struggle is what got me there. How do you feel about that? And truth be told, I have my first on the way in a couple of weeks, so I'm super excited.
Oh, congrats,
and
man.
I'm listening.
That's amazing.
I'm looking for more advice right now than clickbait.
Yeah, so
thank you, by the way, brother. Appreciate it.
Oh, yeah, man. Dude, there's nothing like fatherhood, brother. It's
appreciate that.
It's a deep joy, and it's also the hardest thing you'll ever do, but it's great.
So I hear.
Yeah, man. So do I want to give them all, like hand them everything? Yes and no. What I want to hand them is, Dad busted his ass. That's what I want to hand them, because, I really look at parenthood and you can be one of 2 parents, right? You can either be the shining example of who they maybe should be, or you can be the warning, right? And I have friends who their parents were the warning. I also have friends whose parents were the shining example. I was blessed to have parents who were a shining example for me. My dad, retired Air Force, flies for American Airlines now. My mom was a nurse growing up. She's still a nurse in the operating room. And, they instilled in me as a kid, and it stuck. You don't quit, Dave. Whatever you do, you don't quit. And that may be to a fault that I don't quit, because, man, there have been some times when it may have been easier, may have been the right thing to quit, and I just kept pushing through and ended up developing a really beautiful 7-figure business that employs a bunch of people, and then started some more out of it, and it's worked out.
And what was it about that entrepreneurial side, man? I get you wanted to provide for the family, but it goes with a lot of uncertainty, right? So did you have some sort of mentorship that pointed you into that direction? Was it all about aspirations only? What made you want to take that risk?
Yeah, I had a series of internships when I was in college, even one as a senior in high school. So I graduated high school, Mike, but I took like the lightest load possible my senior year. And even then, like I have a late July birthday. So I was 18 the whole year. So I would just sign myself out from school so that I could go do the internship. And I was interning at a place for free. I found out later that was illegal. But point is, I just wanted to work, man. And as I started to get close to one of my mentors, I just saw this opportunity, the joy in creating something out of nothing. And there's something that's really wholesome about employing people, like really good. And I get very frustrated sometimes because there's a lot of media coverage that demonizes businesses. And then there's a lot of media coverage that people, in particular politicians on both sides of the aisle in this country, like to say that they're for small business. And it's been my experience that that's not true. And I am absolutely positive of one thing: small businesses and entrepreneurs build and shape the economy of the United States, and they are the people that employ this country. And it's a crying shame, Mike, that you and I and my kids and your kids are not being taught the principles of entrepreneurship and business ownership in our public education system. It's absolutely ridiculous. We used to be the hub of innovation in the world, and we're slipping every single year in that space. And it's because we're creating drones and workers from an 1850s education model, and we have to change it, bro. Sorry, that was me getting on my soapbox a little bit, but I'm passionate about it, man, because we need good people who love other people and want to give them a good job to start businesses. There are not enough of those people out there, and we need more. So I have a fire and a hunger in my belly to start more businesses and to employ more people, because honestly, man, that's what I was put on this earth to do by whoever put me here or whatever put me here. Dude, that's what I'm here for.
It's the backbone of this economy, man. Guys like yourself that have this vision, not just for yourself and your family, but other people out there, your community, your family, your overall surroundings. So there's no shame about it. But comes with a lot of responsibility, though, obviously. I mean, you make a promise, and next thing you know, everyone's relying on you, and sometimes things go awry. And kind of what we're seeing with this economy right now, it's a lot of people are relying on you for one thing, but at the same time, not everything goes to your liking. How are you managing as a leader the morale that your employees are dealing with in such a crazy time right now?
Yeah, I think that's a question that everybody's asking.
All right.
The way that I'm managing morale is making sure that we're all on the same page and understanding the wins, right? So, what my company does that I really want to talk about is Avadel, and we're an outsourced sales development rep agency. So all we're doing every day is booking meetings on behalf of our clients so that they just show up. Like, the thing that everybody hates. Well, not everybody, a lot of people. They don't like to do the prospecting. They don't like to have the conversations. They don't want to do the cold outreach. They're like, hey, if I just get more meetings, man, I close like half the deals that I get if I get a meeting. That's what my company does. We get our clients meetings. And so, yesterday we booked a meeting with one client with the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, and they're going to talk to them about redoing their IT infrastructure. It's way over my head. I don't even know what the hell they're going to do, but I talked to the guy and he goes, hey man, so I just need you to know, like, this is just one meeting that you got me in the past few months. We've gotten him a bunch more. He's like, but if I land this one, I think it's somewhere in the neighborhood of like mid 7 figures. And I was like, oh, dude, that's amazing. What did you do last year? Because he's like a fairly new client. He's like, last year, I think we did about a $500,000.
Not a bad growth rate.
Not a bad growth rate, right? And so here's this guy. He's an entrepreneur. What do I want to do? I want to help entrepreneurs. I want to help them thrive and hire more people. He's going to have to hire a boatload more people just because we're getting him these kind of meetings and stuff. And I bring that back to the team. I'm like, guys, let's celebrate this. Let's remember what we're doing. We're stimulating the economy with our service. And then we're also being really nimble, honestly, Mike. Like, I'm doing things so that people can't say no to me on a sales call. I'm doing things so that when people leave the sales call, they go, well, shit, if we don't try out Dave's service, we're moronic because it's absolutely ridiculous not to. I basically made it so that if they say no, they've got so many hangups, I don't even fucking want them, man. So it's been interesting to be nimble. You know, there's a Charles Darwin quote about evolution, and it goes something to the effect, I'm not going to get it totally right, but it's something to the effect of like, it's not the strongest species, nor is it the fastest species that survives. It's the one that most nimbly adapts to change. And right now, man, the businesses and my friends who are doing well, they're either in a position pre-pandemic to handle this pandemic, like they were going to cash in on it, or they were so nimble, man, that when they saw this coming, they went, okay, I need to do X. Like I had a long-term client. She was like, hey, the pandemic's going to take the legs out of my business. So she's like, I have contacts in China. I'm going to get PPE made. I'm going to sell it. She'd never sold PPE before. She'd never had it made. Dude, she did $20 million in PPE last year.
Not bad.
Right? And so it's like one of those things, right? You have to be nimble. She told me the other day, she goes, dude, the other business is going to come back. It's going to come back, but it's going to take like 5 years. She goes, there's nothing I can do. She goes, but this one's going to stay around for probably 2 or 3. She's like, so I'll be fine. So yeah, man, I think there's something to being nimble and then celebrating those wins.
Absolutely. So talk us a little bit about Avadel. I want to hear more about the actual concept and how did you actually come up with it? What inspired for you to solve this specific problem?
Yeah. Okay. So when I first started Avadel, my background was in digital marketing and advertising, and I had done sales. Like that was the thing. Really, my experience was in that space. And so we were a digital marketing and advertising firm. We did everything just like everybody else. And we referred our way to a lot of success, and we did really, really well. But I was tired of doing referrals. So I hired an outsourced 1099 sales team. They couldn't move the needle. Then I hired an inside sales team of greenhorns, and I trained them myself because I was making sales. Didn't work. And then I hired a really experienced sales guy, and that didn't work. Then I hired an outsourced SDR team, and that didn't work. Long story short, well over $500,000 wasted, and a couple of years, I just went, Dave, you're going to have to figure this out for yourself. And so I sat down, and it took me about 6 months, honestly, Mike, to finally start to unlock the key. And over those 6 months, what I did was I figured out really quick, short emails, like 2, 3 line, 4 line top emails, cold outreaches with fun direct mail follow-up. So I send things in the mail like a message in a bottle that comes in a tubular mail, right? Or I send a piñata in the mail, and it comes outside of a box. It has a shipping label on one side and a message on the other. And it may say something like, hey, just like this piñata, there's more that you can get out of your digital marketing. Give me a call, join the party, right? Or I may send them a 13-inch in diameter poop emoji. It's on corrugated plastic, poop emoji. So it's poop emoji on one side, message and shipping label on the back. And it may say something like, hey, life's too short for shitty digital advertising. Let us clean it up for you.
Right? You use the actual term shitty in an out blast email campaign?
You would not. Okay, so this is.
I'm not believing it. That's what I'm trying to say. That's ballsy, man.
So I sent that to the CMO at Target. We ended up doing work with Target. Okay, so we were working with SMBs. I just want to paint this picture. We're working with small businesses, small, medium-sized businesses, people that are doing like $5 to $50 million a year in revenue. And we're busting our ass, getting them great results. And, it is what it is, but I need to scale. So I started getting big meetings, Target, Textron, Bell Helicopter, like just mammoth meetings. And we start to do work with some of these huge clients. About a year ago, I turned to my COO and I said, she's like my best friend at this point. She and I have worked together for a long time. I was like, it was right before the pandemic. I was like, I think it's time for us to make a pivot. She was like, oh yeah. I was like, yeah, I don't want to work with these big corporations anymore. But we need to pay the bills. We need something that's going to be scalable. And she was like, well, what do you want to do? And I said, I think we should do this outsourced SDR work. I think we should work on this. There's a spot in the marketplace for us. No one that has an agency of our size is really doing this. We've had a lot of success, and we were offering this service for some of our B2B clients anyways. I was like, I think we should just own it. That's who we should become. Well, then March of last year happened, and it's a really fun time to make a pivot before the pandemic because you didn't know that the pandemic was going to happen. And so, yeah, man, I mean, at this point, we do LinkedIn outreach. We do direct email outreach. We do cold direct mail outreach. And basically, I do quality meetings over quantity. So like our best clients, man, their monthly recurring revenue is what they sell, a lot of contracts. And their average contract size is at least 5,000 in MRR or greater. Man, they end up just being lifelong clients because we provide just a steady stream of meetings. 2 to 3 meetings a week for some. For other clients we have, they're like, hey, we got a sales team of 12. We actually have a client that does this. And we need them to have, each sales member needs to have 5 meetings a week from you guys. So we set that all up, man. And then it just runs. It's so fun.
So SDRs, I worked with them for the last over a decade now, and I still work with them on a daily basis. It's hard to reiterate one specific product, one specific value add out of that product, and to help quantify that into ROI. How do you do that on a numerous client scale? Does your SDR team, is it specifically dedicated to one specific client, or do you have literally a team of SDRs accommodating every client that comes in?
Yeah, it's a great question, man. Yeah, we do something really unique. So a lot of SDR firms, I'll be honest with you in the audience, I shopped around before we made this pivot. I even hired an SDR firm just to see what they did.
Hold on, you're telling me you explored variety to make a better business decision? That's never
crazy.
Happened before in the business world.
I know. Well, it's funny because a lot of people, I was talking with a friend of mine who owns a business, and he goes, how much did you spend on your shopping spree? Like to go try out the other firms.
It's a common question in my household, but we're not going to get there.
Yeah. So I go, well, and I kind of tabbed it up and I was like, $35,000. And he was like, what? And I was like, look, man, I'm not trying to be second best in this business. I'm trying to be the best in the world at this. $35,000 ain't no thing. Okay. We're going to do it right. Pretty much what I found out was every other firm makes some really vital mistakes. Here are the mistakes that they make. And by the way, SDR firms may be listening. You're not going to beat me. So come at me, bro. All right. So here's the deal.
Challenge.
They throwing down. So here's the deal. SDR firms right now, they make one of two mistakes. Some of them make both. One mistake is they have one person doing everything. They have a copywriter who's also an account manager, who's also figuring out the strategy, who's also figuring out the positioning. And it doesn't work, man. It's too much. And by the way, they're managing like 12 to 15 clients. So for the business owner of the SDR firm, their profitability on that's insane. It's just bananas. It's off the chain. Okay. Because that person is a bad employee. They're being asked too much, right? Or, and this is the other mistake that happens, they have an SDR firm and they don't have a marketing, branding, positioning background, which everyone on my team has. And the reason why that's significant, Mike, is we work with a bunch of the same companies, right? We're a web dev and design company. We're a web dev and design company. We're a web dev and design company. How do you position those people differently? And most of the time what happens is they'll send out cold emails, or an SDR firm for them will send out cold emails, and they'll say, hey, we do WordPress and we're the best at WordPress. And this is why we're great at WordPress. No one gives a shit, man. Tell me the benefits, right? Give me the bennies, baby. Tell me what give me what the financial benefit is to working with you. Tell me what the psychological benefit is to you, and give me a perceived value. Here's our perceived value. I don't have one person doing all those things. Every single client has at minimum 4 people assigned to them, 4 actual staff members, all based here in the US. We have a strategist who their job is to full-time look at the data and analyze, hey, what's working? Like, hey, is this direct mail piece getting the right number of meetings scheduled? Is this email working? What's the click-through rate? What's the open rate? Then we have a copywriter who their sole job is to write copy for you. The strategist is also figuring out the positioning and making sure that we're positioning them in the right way, that the copy is flowing that way as well. Then we have an account manager. The account manager's sole role is to be able to ensure the success of not just our team to the client's mind, right? But it's also to say, hey, man, what else can we be doing to help that client succeed? We have some clients that come to us. I know this is going to be shocking to you, Mike. They think that they're great salespeople, and they are fucking terrible. So what do? Hey, I've got partners who do sales training. Here it is for free. I'm going to give it to you. I'm going to pay for you to go to sales training, because if you don't close deals, it's not because of me. It's because of you, bro. So the account manager is there to ensure client success. Then we have an autoresponder. People email us back. They shoot a LinkedIn message back, and they're like, hey, tell me about service A. What does that look like? And if it's an FAQ type question, they will respond. If it's something that's really technical and in-depth, then they'll pass it along to the client. Either way, those 4 people are always touching those accounts every single day. And that means that they can just be in their niche, do what they're best at, man, as opposed to trying to wear 100 different hats. And it's proven to be incredibly successful for us.
I love the fact that you just said that word niche, because that was actually my next absolute question is, you have the game down, you have the actual resources deployed accordingly, but what is that ideal customer that you actually want to work with? And what kind of industry have you seen that's been the most successful for your overall business?
Yeah, so really for us, it's that, are they a monthly recurring revenue service provider? And is that monthly recurring revenue at least $5,000 a month per client customer?
So the majority had to be SaaS models, sounds like, software as a service, basically.
It had to be SaaS. It had to be digital marketing and advertising firms, which are near and dear to my heart. It had to be IT as a service kind of model, where we got that guy that we're working with right now, that he had that meeting with the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. The reason why that one works is because his model, like his product, is so expensive that if he lands 1 gig in the year, we more than pay for ourselves.
Pay for the entire overhead. Absolutely.
Yeah, man. Or, we've got a few app development firms. They're super high end, and they love to work with us because they're pay to play. It's $220,000 to walk through the door. So
bad gig.
Those kind of big contracts or the monthly recurring revenue works out great.
Love it. Let's talk a little bit about the sales side, Dave. Obviously, it's a SALESBIZ podcast. You mentioned salespeople. They're arrogant. Sometimes they know what they do. Most of the times they don't, but they still say that they do. But how do you specifically deal with underperforming salespeople? Because I've been an underperforming salesperson myself before. I was selling the wrong product. I wasn't passionate about it. I've seen people that are passionate about products, but they still couldn't sell the shit. So how would you inspire people to actually get their number across the finish line there?
Man, I love to. So we use Uber Conference for all of our sales calls. We also use it for all of our account management calls. And the reason why we use it is a few reasons. One of them is you don't have to download any software, right? So pre-pandemic, that was really handy. Now everybody has Zoom. But the other thing is it records every call automatically. So whenever someone's not hitting their numbers, I'm like, hey, let's go listen to some calls. 97% of the time, the reason why they're not closing deals because they're talking too damn much. And I'm like, look, if you're on a podcast, look, Mike, I knew when you had me on the call, I was like, I got to talk. But
this whole
sales
guys, this whole podcast started because of what Dave just said. I kid you not. I started this podcast because I get to ask questions of smart entrepreneurs like Dave and shut the F up and just listen. And it's the most important sales skill of them all, ladies and gentlemen. I kid you not. Just shut the fuck up and let the customer talk. Dave, I'm sorry. I just wanted to make that point clear. Please continue.
No, you're great, man. I love it. It's so funny. It's the thing, you know? And so when I listen to that, I'm like, look, it even breaks it down for us, like how much you talked versus how much they talked. And I tell my people all the time, I'm like, look, there's a direct correlation. We see it. If you talk more than a third of the time, your chance at closing that deal drops so far, so fast. And they look at me like, well, but they asked the question. I'm like, right, because you let them lead the call. Don't let them lead the call. They don't want to lead the call. They're leading the call because you didn't take charge, right? And it's like, man, just take charge. They expect you to lead. So lead. So we look at that. And my encouragement is, dude, I've been there. Or I'll use sports, right? A lot of times people get sports analogies. I'm like, the best shooters in basketball go cold. The best hitters in baseball go cold. It just happens. The difference between a guy who's playing in the major leagues or playing in the NFL and the guy that is an all-star all the time or on the Pro Bowl or whatever is their ability to forget the last play. And man, it's so easy to get on a call and be talking to somebody who just, dude, they just got their nuts kicked in by somebody else. They showed up. They're not in a good mood. It has absolutely nothing to do with you. And you get off that call and you're soaking up that bad energy. And unless you've got the goldfish memory of 10 seconds, you're going to blow the next 3 calls, man. Because you're just going to get right on there. You're going to be like, oh, man. And you're going to start to press. You're going to start to be timid or whatever that looks like for you. And so, yeah, a lot of my encouragement is shut up and forget about that call. Just be here now. So one of the things that we do, Mike, is we give all of our salespeople lots of like what would be seen as almost spiritual, and I put spiritual in quotes, material. And it's all about presence. Can you just be here right now? Don't be thinking about the next call. Don't be thinking about your next question. Don't be thinking about what you've got to do later. Don't be thinking, oh man, I should have sent that email to that prospect. Just be here on the podcast with Mike and be very attuned to what's happening. And then when this is done, guess what? You're going to have time to do whatever's next. Yeah. So, yeah.
And you can always reference it back because Uber Conference, by the way, I use Zoom daily. I have tons of sales meetings daily and I record all my calls. Shit, you not.
Love it.
It's I don't know what the actual memory space restrictions are with Zoom, but anyway, I reference back my calls all the time, man. And I feel like it's a great practice. Love the fact that you called that out. Yeah, Literally, there's nothing else to say. People, record your damn calls and listen back to it. Whether it's that same afternoon or a week later, you're going to learn a lot from yourself, believe it or not.
Yep.
So with that said, Dave, prospecting, let's talk a little bit about that. Once again, you could be passionate, you could be flexible, you could be all the above, but prospecting strategies, as you all know, are a little bit different. What are some specific strategies that have worked well for you? And I know you talked a little bit earlier about emails and labeling them accordingly. FYI, I want to get this quickly off the thing. My favorite email that I've sent that has worked really well is "something I said?" ? It's post call, and if they're not getting back to me via email, I've called, I've left a text, voicemail, etc. I'll literally send an email with a subject matter that says something I said, and the body will be like, "Hey, this we had a great call, the first one. Something I said that forced you not to respond." My response rate is around 82% on that one, and people are still been stealing it from me for the longest time. But what are some of your specific, what's the Dave secret sauce? What are some of your strategies that have really continued filling that pipeline?
Yeah, man, I love to write industry specific copy. Too often we write this really good email and it's industry generic. And I'm niche agnostic, right? And yet I write very niche specific email. And the difference between those, the generic and the niche specific, is startling. Like, amazing. It's a 50%, 52% actually, difference in open rate, in click-through rate, in response rate across the board, generic to niche specific. And part of that, man, is just knowing all the pain points for your particular prospects. The other thing too is I love A/B testing. Like, man, always be testing. Everybody's like, always be closing. I'm like, always be testing, man.
I would say always be trying. Almost there, but
that's good. Yeah, it's perfect. Yeah, like I remember when I finally cracked the egg on like, how do I get people to open my emails? And I had this one headline that I used for about a year and a half, and it was the same. I love filling in company name, period. How can I help? ? That's what it was. And it got me into some great meetings. I got lots of clients out of it. It was a fantastic headline. My open rate on it when I was a 98%. I mean, it just blew the doors off for all these companies. But after a year and a half, it didn't work as much. And I had to fall back on those digital advertising and marketing principles of, hey, just because it worked a year ago, just because it worked last season, just because it worked last week doesn't mean it's going to work right now. That's okay. Just get used to it. So for me, man, I use a lot of that. And then the other thing too is short and sweet. Like I talked to a guy at Southwest Airlines last week. And he said, Dave, the reason why I decided to take this call with you is you told me what you do in 2 sentences. He goes, I'm busy. He goes, I don't have time to look and read 5 paragraphs. He goes, I don't want to. He said, but you were so compelling in 2 sentences, I realized that this would be worth it. That changes the ball game, man. And that's what we do for all of our really successful campaigns is short and sweet. People are moving fast. Can you distill what you do into 2 to 4 sentences? And if you can't, you have to work on it until you can.
Absolutely, man. With respect to practice, do you have a specific regimen that you follow on do you have a specific schedule that you wake up at 6 a.m. and then you go to sleep at 10 a.m.? The craziest one I've seen so far is Mark Wahlberg and The Rock. Their regimens are absolutely insane. Huge fan of those guys, but there's no way in hell I'm waking up at 3:30 in the morning to work out. What's Dave's secret sauce around that?
Yeah. So meditation, man. Again, if you're trying to do sales and you're trying to be present, get a meditation app. Sam Harris has a great one. Calm's a great one. I've started doing some ones on YouTube for free. They were like declassified CIA meditations called the Gateway Experience. It's great. Okay. I meditate. I work out as much as I humanly can. Dude, I got 3 kids under the age of 8. I'm married. I've been married for 12 and a half years. I'd like to stay married. So look, man, I'm busy. Like I run 3 companies. So, for me, it's like self-care is key. As far as what my regimen is, honestly, it's what do I need today? And it's realizing that sometimes I need to take a nap in the middle of the day. And so I block it out beforehand, or I'll have a meeting that's on my calendar. I give it to a salesperson. I'm like, hey, John, you got this, man. You don't need me to take this one. You do this one. And I'll take that time. Or maybe I just go for a walk. Like, it doesn't matter. I'm less of a regimen guy and I'm more of a what's happening right now. What needs to be done right now? Because as you know, Mike, look, dude, you're cranking late at night. This isn't normal business hours. And that happens a lot for business owners, right? You and I, like it's not normal business hours. We're still cranking. So there are days where I just go hard, 15 hours, 16-hour days. The next day, man, I may be chill. I heard a great story one time about Grant Cardone, right? And he was talking about
Uncle G.
Yeah, that's right, baby. And he was talking about how he one day was just like playing cards. He's playing cards like in the office, in the bullpen or whatever. And this other guy starts playing cards with him. And the COO comes up to the other guy and she goes, hey, quit that. You cannot play cards. He can play cards whenever the fuck he wants. Okay. You don't get to play cards with Grant. And he's like, oh, sorry. And that's the mentality that I have, man. Like there's so much happening for me that if I can take a respite, I'm going to take it right now. If I can get a workout in at 3 p.m, it's happening. If it doesn't happen until 10 p.m., all right, it doesn't happen until 10 p.m. But I'm a rise and grind kind of guy. Lots of reading, lots of audiobooks, podcasts like this. Generally just getting after it. I know what fills my soul and I know what makes my body feel better. Try and do those things, man.
Absolutely. I always say, man, party like you're the CEO, but work hard like you're the entry-level associate. Because
come on,
the second you lose that mentality, you just might never get to that CEO status. Last question for you, boss man. I know you're a busy guy. If you were to go back to the 18-year-old Dave Valentine self, what advice would you give to younger Dave?
Everything's gonna be okay.
My man.
Dude, I don't know if you relate to this, Mike. My 18-year-old self was really anxious and was really concerned with getting it right. And some people think that fuels them into success. Dude, I work harder now. I also work way smarter now. And the reason why I do that is because I got over that anxiety. It's not totally gone, but it's a hell of a lot better. And I wish if I could go back and talk to that kid, I'd be like, hey, man, you're fine. Everything's going to be okay.
Life is short, but it's beautiful, brother. Couldn't agree with you more. Man. Dave, really appreciate you taking the time, my man. It was great meeting you. Love the journey. Love the aspiration. Love the energy. Continue crushing out there, brother. And don't forget to stay in touch.